What's going on, guys? It's your boy Anthony alongside the best Big 3 account in the universe, aka Will, back with another edition of The Fourth Man, a very exciting edition of The Fourth Man because we got breaking news. We got a Hall of Fame guest on the back end of this. We even got our main man, Will, always joining me alongside on The Fourth Man. So first and foremost, my guy, how's it going?
I mean, you introduced me in twice. The first one was a pretty big compliment, but then the second one was a little insulting. So I guess I'm at a neutral point now.
Well, you just want to run it back? Just start it over?
No, this is like the fifth intro. Let's just start the freaking podcast.
No, just kidding. Yeah, let's just get right into it. Will, I'm glad you're doing great. Like I said, great episode.
I wasn't doing great.
Oh, you're not doing great? Okay, Will's not doing so great, but we're doing great as a whole because we have great news. And we have, like I said, a great guest. First and foremost, if you want to find the show on any of our social medias, at Fourth Man Pod, at Big3 N3ws, at A_Siggy. If you want to watch the show, youtube.com/fourthmanpod. Please subscribe. Got a lot of great content coming up on the visual front. And also for those of you tuning in every Saturday on Dash Radio on the Nothing But Net channel, appreciate you guys as always, whether you're a first-time listener or you're a recurring listener every Saturday here on Dash Radio. All right, let's get into the breaking news first because, Will, this might be like an historical day for the Fourth Man because we didn't record the day before news dropped. We recorded the day news dropped. Very rare.
It's funny because we actually did record yesterday for next episode, and then we were like, you want to just bang out this week's episode now? And then we were like, because knowing us, the minute that we record, something's going to happen.
Always. And
so
sure enough,
this almost proves that because we like pump faked it.
Yeah.
We were like, we're going to record this week. No, we're not. And then news happens. So now we know it's connected.
Gotta be. I mean, a little ball fake here. Got our defender moved to the side, show a little bit of what they were going for. And voila, we get an easy basket. And this is great. This is great news. So we've had a couple of teams at the Big Threes announce that the captains are set. Bivouac obviously was the first one. Power also announced that their three captains are going to be Katina Mobley, Royce White, and Big Baby Glenn Davis. Bivouac's captains are going to be the same. But then they dropped the news today on George Gervin's birthday, the OG Hall of Fame coach for Ghost Ballers, the one and only coach for Ghost Ballers. They announced, too, that Ghost Ballers have their captain set. Ricky Davis, one of the first Ghost Ballers to be on the team. We already knew that he got promoted to captain back in 2020, I think. And then we knew that Mike Taylor got promoted to co-captain. That's something he really wanted. And he's kind of just really the epitome of Ghost Ballers. And, or I should say the face of Ghost Ballers in a sense because of all the effort and hard work he's putting in.
Yeah.
But then they also announced, and this is where the breaking news comes in, is that
Play the music.
Johnson will be the second co-captain, third captain of Ghost Ballers. So now Ghost Ballers, three captains are set. Pretty interesting, I guess, first year, if not 1.5 years for Chris Johnson, drafted number 2 overall by Triplets. They end up winning a championship, but he's traded midway through the season to Ghost Ballers. Now, in hindsight, it's almost like this is a great opportunity because now I'm a co-captain. But Will, we just found out about this just a few seconds ago. First reaction to it.
Yeah, I mean, we really found out about this. Really, the news dropped while we were recording the interview. Mm-hmm. So, if you look at us and you're like, oh, hey, that you guys were late to the news. Well, yeah, we were late to the news. But it's because we were doing other Big 3 related things. So I'm gonna give us a pass. Yeah. But this is huge. Congrats to Chris Johnson. I mean, he's really found a home here.
Yeah.
We see it all the time. Players get traded, from one situation to another one, and I don't even really think there was any bad blood between Triplets and Chris Johnson. They just made a pretty smart move, fortifying their championship contention with Jamario Moon, who ended up being great for them down the stretch. But they let go of Chris Johnson, and thankfully for Chris Johnson, he doesn't have to go through the draft process again. He's found a home in Ghost Ballers, so it seems like Ghost Ballers are not only building a pretty young, by young terms, I mean Big 3 young terms. Ricky Davis, obviously, we know he's a bucket. Mike Taylor, like you said, he's the epitome of what you want. He's a spark plug, and then Chris Johnson is a quality big to get. So they're really, George Gervin's building a bit of a pretty cool culture.
Yeah.
Over at Ghost Ballers. I mean, we talk about power a lot in terms of culture and Triplets as well. But Ghost Bowlers looks like they're building their own culture where they're rewarding their guys.
Yeah.
So that's really cool to see. So, we talked to Jordan. It was Jordan Daly last episode,
Couple
and
weeks
I
ago.
think we asked, does Mike know anything? We might have asked this off air. So forgive me if I'm repeating a question on the podcast, but we said, does Mike know? I think I asked this off air. I said, does Mike know anything about Ghost Bowlers? And he said no. So this
Yeah.
decision must have been made pretty recently.
Yeah.
So
It must have been something that they maybe just talked strictly with Chris Johnson about. I mean, I know
That's
he's
true
playing
too.
overseas right now, but you look at this and you think, wow, Ghost Baller is almost like it's almost like, they made the trade and it was almost an investment now that we're looking at it, because they go into the season thinking, I have a co-captain spot open, that we could bring somebody in like some of these other teams are doing. Enemies is one, Bivouac another one. They're bringing in most Bates. They're like, no, we made the trade. We thought it was a really good trade. We've traded our first round pick for their first round pick, and we want to hold on to him. We don't want him to go back to the draft process, because think about Chris Johnson's game. First off, 6'11" is just great to have. We obviously know how coveted the big man is in this game, but
especially the big three. There's not a ton of 6'11" guys.
Well, exactly. But he's great, screening and rolling. Great, I guess what you call rim running in a sense. It's not much of running in it because it's half court, but great rim runner, can shoot the outside shot. So he brings a lot of versatility, can block shots, brings a lot of versatility to their team. And I think they think, like you will, there's not a lot of 6'11" guys in there. We could maybe try to go find somebody, but like you said, Ghost Ballers is building this culture, and they decided to stay within internally and promote internally. And sure enough, Chris Johnson's going to be the third captain of Ghost Ballers, and we have 3 teams that now have their captain set.
Yeah, I mean, I'm certainly excited for Ghost Ballers. I would say, looking at it now, you talk about those 3 teams, right? Power, Bivouac, and Ghost Ballers. Ghost Ballers, I think, are the team you naturally have the most doubts about. Bivouac, if they take care of business, they're a playoff team.
Mm-hmm.
Power, the expectation for Power right now is that they are a perennial playoff team. So,
playoffs since they've been in the league.
They haven't missed the playoffs yet, but the way that they conduct themselves, they conduct business, anything short of a playoff berth is going to be a disappointment for them.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of Ghost Ballers, it'll be interesting to see. I think Ghost Ballers is a team that you're going to need a pretty solid draft from them. Ricky Davis, Mike Taylor, those were 2 guys who were on the team before, and they were not a playoff team. Chris Johnson as well. So you're not really bringing in any new blood. You're just sort of hoping that the players that you have continue to improve. And I think that's very possible that we'll see. I like the pickup from Ghost Bowlers. It certainly is an interesting one. It's funny. Before this move, I was thinking to myself, I think about the Big 3 a lot, probably more than most people.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it is, if it's like a sickness or what, but basically I was saying to myself, we're really talking about all these big names that can join, but I wonder if we're really not going to see a ton just because, they didn't have a season last year. We're really still not too sure what this 2021 season is going to look like. Amid the pandemic and everything, is it going to be more like a bubble? Is it really just going to be like a 2-location thing?
Right.
So I wonder if, and especially too, there's not a ton of captain spots available. There are co-captain spots available, but I feel like a lot of these guys, we sort of got, in a way, spoiled with this expansion where it was triplets, aliens, Bivouac. Who's the 4th one? Aliens. Enemies, excuse me. Enemies. So you had 12 captain spots right there, and 4 like captain spots. That's what the big names want. They want to come in there and say, all right, well, I want to be the one drafting my team and picking my squad and picking my coach. And besides Killer 3s, which that's an incredibly unique situation, because the captain really, you have your team. So if you're becoming captain of Killer 3s, you're just sort of in charge of, I guess, the 1 draft pick and then any trades if you want, but you don't really get the full command that a captain would, because that's a team that's already set. So I wonder if we're really going to get a ton of big names, and I wonder if the Chris Johnson promotion, as much as it is a reward of those guys and, like we said, a culture move, and I'm certainly not knocking the pick because I think Chris Johnson's a good pick for them. I just wonder if it's a signal that, all right, well, there's not obviously a line of guys waiting who are
Yeah.
like, yeah, I want to play for the big three. I'll go wherever.
That's a good point. That's a really good point. But what I was also thinking too, just on the flip side of that, is that maybe they're looking at this like we just want some sustainability. Like
Sure.
think about this like the last year they were playing. Okay, Carlos Boozer was supposed to be a co-captain. It ends up being kind of a mess, right? He plays maybe like 1 or 2 games and then is shipped off to Power or dropped and then picked up by Power, right? And then you go into the offseason, Mike Bibby's like, hey, I'm going to be coaching now. So then, all right, Mike Bibby goes into the coaching role. At the end of the season, you had the trade for Chris Johnson, and then you also added guys like Solomon Jones. So there was a little bit like of new guys just constantly being flushed in and trying to figure out that chemistry. And
Alex Scales is another one.
Alex Scales. So, there was a lot of changes, and I felt like there was a lot of there was just a lot of different faces. So I think now they're looking at this like, okay, well, we promoted from within to our captain spot with Ricky Davis, and then promoted from within for both our co-captain spots. And maybe it's just like you said, they're trying to form some kind of culture, and they want to do it with the guys that they have right now, but also too, just maybe like, we just want some, I said sustainability earlier, but stability really is the word I'm looking for.
Sure.
Like they just want some stability. And this is maybe their way of doing that. I mean, like I said, it could be more of like it was an investment play for Chris Johnson. Like they maybe were thinking like, hey, we don't want him for just 1 year. We want him for multiple years. But, they could have already known about Mike Bibby wanting to transition into coaching. So,
well, they've had a year heads up.
Yeah, I mean,
Mike Bibby's been the coach of Aliens for a year now.
Yeah, very true. So I mean, they've probably been thinking about it for a while, sitting on it, and it's the Iceman's birthday. Maybe he wanted a little birthday splash alert.
Maybe he did. I mean, clearly,
So we got 3 teams set. We're a quarter of the way of figuring out all the captain spots. I think for the most part, we know most of them, but they haven't been confirmed. I think Trilogy's confirmed, so maybe 4, maybe we're
right. Trilogy is confirmed. I mean, the league for
Enemies is almost
didn't post a graphic, but I'm pretty sure Trilogy is confirmed at this point.
Yeah, and then Enemies announced that Nick Young's the captain spot. So, we're getting there. We're making waves.
Yep.
The other big news that came out today is that they announced that the combine is going to be at the end of May. So now we have an idea of when, or I'm sorry, the combine. The tryout is at the end of May. And that's a big difference because there's going to be guys trying out in order to get into the combine, which for us now it makes us think like it's got to be around June, right? Because the season starts on July 10th. So,
well, originally the combine was sort of coupled in with this public tryout.
Right. Mm-hmm.
It doesn't seem like that's the case anymore.
I don't think
it's going to be interesting to see. I thought last year, the original plan made sense. You're going to bring in guys for open tryouts. You have all your captains, your coaches together already.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're just going to, do the combine the next day. But it doesn't look like that's the plan for right now. It looks like it's just, it very well could be the plan. I don't know.
Well, here's what I was thinking.
Yeah, we don't know enough information. We just know it's going to be the end of May.
There's a lot of behind the scenes that's going on, and now that they've added a CEO, he's maybe trying to get caught up to speed. So maybe they're trying to space some of it out. They're like, okay, let's go ahead and get this done so we can work out the logistics for the combine and the draft, because that is a main viewing point, in any league, but to the big 3. So maybe that's the way they're looking at it. I still think it's pretty big news because we have a timeline of when the tryout's going to be. Remember, any athlete or anybody can try out for this tryout. The goal isn't that you're going to be in the draft pool. It's that you're going to get invited to the combine and, essentially have a chance.
Well, which then you'd be in the draft pool.
Right. But I'm saying if you don't.
You have to be invited to the combine. You're not in the draft pool just by trying out.
This is where we've heard names outside of the sport of basketball, such as Terrell Owens, potentially being a prospect, a big 3 prospect in a sense. J. Cole is a name that, has been tied to basketball for a while and potentially playing at some point at a professional level. So, hey, I don't know. It could be really interesting. All I know is I'm happy that they actually have a timeline for this, because now I think we know that the combine or a combine and the draft is going to be at some point in June. But they're making moves. They're making strides, and that's the most encouraging thing.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll just say this, I'm in communication with a lot of guys who are sort of at a in-between point between trying out and going to the combine, right? Because the combine is technically, I think it's NBA or overseas experience, or just any pro experience. But there are some people who, are semi-pro or maybe played pro very briefly or did D1 and then went on to pursue other things. But so for them, they were been left in the dark for a lot of this process. So I was just really happy. Today was really just like, I felt really good sending a lot of those guys this information
Yeah,
just so they had an idea like, hey,
that's
listen, like,
cool.
yeah, like, I don't know if you're going to be invited to the combine. I don't know what the combine is going to look like, but you will have an opportunity the end of May.
That's
And a
cool.
lot of them were really like just happy to hear that. And you
Yeah, I
would
mean, it's a
think
sense
I
of
was
relief.
afraid, absolutely. And I was afraid some people were gonna be like trying out, like, like I shouldn't have to try out or whatever.
Yeah.
But nobody said that. Everybody was like, dope.
I
Like,
think I
I'll
think
be
there's
ready.
a better understanding right now that the draft pool for the big three is going to be deep and loaded with talent.
Yeah.
There a lot of people are looking to play in this league, and they have a good opportunity. I think we've seen a couple of guys in the big three already that maybe people didn't know their names before, and now we've fallen in love with. So
Yeah.
they want to be that next guy, and they have the opportunity come the end of May. We're excited for those guys, and we'll continue to keep you up to date on specific dates and times for the tryout, combine, draft, etc.
Yeah. And also
Um,
too, I will say this, like a little bit of a plug, but like if you're thinking of trying
you're
out,
plugging on your own show.
no, well, right, I guess that's kind of impossible. But if you're thinking of trying out, or if you know someone that wants to try out, you feel free to shoot either one of us a message,
Absolutely.
and we'll absolutely keep you in the loop because sometimes we find out information a little bit before it's announced, or we just get sort of, every once in a while. And there's no guarantees on anything, but if you listen to the show, we really do appreciate the fact that you've stuck around. So if there's anything that we can do to reward you guys or help you guys out as much as you've helped us out. So if this is an avenue that you're seriously trying to explore, by all means, shoot either of us a message and we will try
Yes.
our best to help you out.
Make it happen. We have gotten a couple DMs from a couple players that we're trying to help in any way possible. We're not like prominent names, or we don't have a lot of ties to the league like we used to, but we're still trying to do anything to go out of our way to be able to hopefully, at least make the dream or give you the chance of going to the tryout, if anything. So yeah, please shoot one of us a DM. We'd be happy to help. And that being said, a lot of good news. So let's wrap it up with this. We had a very legendary guest on
Speaking
the
of making dreams come true.
Somebody made our dream come true today, and that's Rick Barry, the legendary head coach for Ball Hogs. Obviously, everyone knows him for the underhanded free throw, but he had a historical career in the ABA, the NBA, Warriors legend, and he took the time with us just to talk about pretty much anything and everything basketball. It was super fun to chat with them. Real candid guy, and he talked about his experience in the Big Three. So appreciate everyone who's tuned into the first half, and here's our interview with Rick Barry. Okay, today we're very honored to have one of the very best to do it in basketball. 12-time All-Star, 9-time All-ABA, NBA first teamer, one of 4 players to be recognized as an ABA and NBA champion, Hall of Famer and Warriors legend, and also on the side does a little bit of head coaching for the Ball Hogs, the one and only ever head coach of the Ball Hogs, Rick Barry. Coach, we appreciate your time. Thanks for taking the time to come on the show.
Oh, well, happy to join you. It's not exactly my list of great accomplishments to the fact because my ball hog team hasn't played very well. But anyway, despite that, it's been a lot of fun, and delighted that Cube, of course, we're talking about Ice Cube, the creator and founder of this, along with Jeff Quantinetz of the Big Three, to have me be a part of it. And it's still fun to be around. I love it. In fact, I just talked to George Gervin today. It was his birthday. And so I had to wish him a happy birthday and get to see George during the season, and Gary Payton and Dr. J and a lot of the guys that I, played against or certainly have watched over the years. And so it's just nice to be around the game of basketball and playing, being part of it. I'm not playing, although sometimes I think I can go out there and still shoot better. But well, no, seriously, here's the thing that I'm proudest of. I guess we're one of the top teams in the league in assists, but yet one of the worst shooting teams. Does that tell you a little bit of something, that we're actually getting some good shots occasionally? So it is one of those things. I don't care what you say. You got to make shots in order to win basketball games. They talk about defense wins championships. Yeah, sure. You got to be a decent defensive team, but if you can't score, you're not going to win. Okay, that's the bottom line in all sports. You got to score some.
100%,
very true.
100%. And we're going to talk all about your Ball Hogs, don't you worry. But we feel like we'd be doing you a disservice if we didn't talk about your illustrious playing career there. And kind of just want to talk just in a general sense. I named off a lot of accolades that you've been able to garner over the years due to, obviously your play and what you did for the sport. what do you feel like attributed to a lot of that success? Just looking back on it.
Well, I think the key to success for anybody, when I talk to young people or business people or whatever, is there's a lot of qualities that are good qualities to have if you want to be successful. But it all comes down to putting the time and the effort in, but eventually getting to the point where you have confidence in your ability to do what it is you've trained yourself to do. Confidence, to me, is the main key to success. If you don't believe in yourself, I don't know how you can actually really get to be great at anything. You truly have to get to that point. And that comes from trial and error. It comes from not being afraid to fail, to learn through the mistakes that you make and not continually make the same mistakes over and over again. I mean, Einstein, the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again the same way and expecting a different result. You got to change things. You got to learn from those mistakes, become better. Never be satisfied with what you do. I got that from my dad. I mean, you don't want to necessarily be a perfectionist. I was kind of like that myself, but man, that's hard because nobody's perfect and you're going to make mistakes and you just don't want to be too hard on yourself. I learned as I got older to be more forgiving of myself. I used to be so mad when I would make mistakes. And my father said, you're getting so mad at yourself that you're distracting from doing the game and playing the game the way you should play because you're so worried about having made a mistake and so mad at yourself. You can't do that. You have to learn to control your emotions and not have it impact what you're doing in a negative fashion. So, that and being born with some great genes. I mean, my dad was a semi-pro player and coach. I mean, it just doesn't happen. I mean, if God doesn't bless you with, eye-hand coordination and some quickness and some speed or some other things that are necessary in the athletic world, you're not going to be very good. I mean, that's just the reality of it. You might get to be okay, but you're not going to be great.
You said confidence is probably, you said, one of the main factors, but we see a lot of people now mistake confidence for ego. How do you toe the line between the two? Because I feel like a lot of people get overly confident. That sort of becomes, an ego and this false self-image of how good they are, and it's just self-righteousness.
Yeah, that gets down to, and I've been accused of, people said, I heard some people say, and I said, obviously they don't really know me and they don't really know what they're talking about, is arrogance is the word that people hear. And to be honest, in all of the years in watching people going through life myself, I really believe that an arrogant person is a person who lacks confidence. It's a camouflage mechanism to make people think that you think you're really good and everything, but down deep inside, you're scared shitless. I mean, seriously, I think arrogance is a camouflage mechanism. An arrogant person, I don't think, is a supremely confident person, because if you're supremely confident, you don't need to be arrogant. And it's mistaken for that, because I am extremely confident in my ability to do what it is that I do, and regardless of what it is. And that scares the hell out of a lot of people. And so people who aren't really in the same vein as you, who don't have that same confidence in themselves, you intimidate them, and they look at you differently, and they really feel that you're arrogant, or you think you're so damn good. No, I know I'm good. I know I'm good. I was really good at what I did. And I was really good because I put the time and the effort into it to learn how to become good at it. And I had supreme confidence, which is different than arrogance. And so I think that's a misconception that people have, and they throw that word out there, I think, far too easily.
Yeah, completely agree there. And I think there are a lot of people who compensate for some of their insecurities with, sometimes it's tangible items, sometimes it's
great bravado. They're out there doing stuff, and but down deep inside, they're dying. They're
right. Pivot to basketball here a little bit. I'm going to open up kind of with a what if, because I think it's really interesting. The time you joined the San Francisco Warriors was kind of the same time Wilt exited. But back then they didn't do the one and done rule. Knowing now, if you would have been drafted to the Warriors at some time in your college career, because the Warriors did have, I think, 3 top 6 picks in a row back then, with you being number 2 on the last year that you were drafted. Would you have tried to come out earlier and utilize that one and done rule in order to try to play with Wilt?
Absolutely not. Not because I wouldn't want to have played with Wilt, but because I wasn't ready. I wasn't physically ready. I was a late bloomer and developer. I was a skinny little kid. It took a while. I mean, do you know I finished my high school basketball career and hadn't turned 17?
Oh, wow. No.
No way.
Yeah. The season was over before I turned 17 years old, the last year of my high school. So I wasn't ready. to go and play professional basketball. And even as it was, people didn't think, even the owner of the New York Knicks said, why didn't you draft Barry? You had a chance to get him. They took Bill Bradley instead, which I never forgave him for. And because I grew up in New Jersey, and so I had a lot of big games against the Knicks. I'm not a vindictive person, but I also wanted to show them how wrong they were. And I was able to do that. So yeah, no, it's just one of those things. I mean, you have to be ready. I mean, you just have to be prepared in what you do. That's one of the big things. And it's about the fundamentals of the game. I tell young people, and when I do talk to some of the older people, look, you want to make sure that you understand the basic fundamental principles and concepts of whatever you're doing. If you're a musician, if you're into history, if you're a teacher, if you're a salesperson, you have to understand what is that profession all about. All of the fundamental principles and concepts are the foundation that you're going to lay down that you build on. And I equate it to a skyscraper. You can't build a tall building on a small foundation. It's a physical impossibility. The building will topple over if it doesn't have the right foundation. So it's the same way in learning what you're doing, just like you guys are getting into broadcasting. You really need to learn all there is about broadcasting. You know, you have to learn to listen. I mean, I had guys interviewing me, holding a microphone, doing something, asking me a question, doing something. And he couldn't wait to get the mic. He wasn't listening to me. I could have said that I'm well to the arena. I ran two people over, but I got here still instead. And he would have asked me the next question. I mean, seriously, you must learn the right way to do what it is you're trying to do and you're trying to perfect. You're trying to perfect it. You really are. And you should never be satisfied with what you do. If you get to the point where you think, hey, I really made it, I got it, that's the start of the old downward spiral. That's the end. You have to get better. Let's take free throws. I'm known for my free throws, right? I was a better free throw shooter at the end of my career than I was at the beginning. Way better. Yeah. I was just got up to 90. I was in the high 80s, then I got into 90. My last 2 years, I averaged over 94% from the free throw line. Okay. And I'll brag about it because it's the only part of the game you can be selfish and help your team. But I took great pride in that, but I was never satisfied. I was always looking, I was always searching, finding a way to do it a little bit better. I was always willing to listen to somebody who had something that they could tell me or show me that I could do that could help make me better at what I'm doing. You should always be open to ideas and suggestions and should be striving to get better all the time.
100%. I completely agree with that. And I can very much relate to the nervous element that you have as a reporter trying to make sure you have your questions. But you're right. It comes with preparations. You shouldn't have any nerves if you are prepared and confident into what you're coming into.
You can have nerves. No, the nerves are good. Before I played, I had nerves. I had the butterflies in the stomach and everything. That shows that you're ready. That means that you care. In fact, if I didn't have those, I was worried. I remember one game, particularly later in my career, I was out in the court and stuff. And usually for me, it was having to go to the bathroom. It was better than Bill Russell showing up before the game. I wouldn't want to. So it was coming out of a much better orifice for me, So, and I'm out in the court and I'm oh my God. And thank God all of a sudden, there, and I had to run back to the locker room. Okay, I'm ready to go. And it's still that way. Even I play pickleball. I just played in the US Open pickleball championships. Okay. I'm into pickleball. I had the same nervous thing I had there. I had to go. I knew I was ready because I had to go to the bathroom. I mean, so there's nothing wrong with nerves. It's a matter of controlling them and not allowing them to impact you to the point that you have a negative performance because of it. It should be a motivation and help you to get ready to go. I mean, so you're really there. You're into it, and that's okay. It's not a problem, just as long as they don't impact your performance in a negative fashion.
Fair, very fair. I think one of the times where a lot of people might have thought you've been nervous, but you didn't seem nervous. And one of, I think, your most impressive string of games was in the 1967 finals. I know that didn't end in the way that you hoped for, but you averaged almost 41 points per game. That record was held for about 30 years. What do you remember most about that series?
It should still be a record. Actually, the only reason Michael beat it is Michael played in an overtime game and he scored points in the overtime. And if it wasn't bad, his average would be less than mine. That's the highest average in a game in a finals in a 6-game series. That's what I think. Here's the thing. You know what? We're so inundated with analytical and statistical stuff these days. It's unbelievable. In the last 5 years or more, I have learned more about things that I did that I had no idea that I did. Because no, I'm serious. I mean, every day, I just found out the other day, oh, Steph Curry just broke Rick Barry's record. I'm saying, what record was that? I have no idea that I held the record for the most 30-point games in one month for the Golden State Warriors. I guess I had 11 games where I had 30 or more points during the course a month of, I might have been November, I think, for me, whatever. And Steph broke it. I had no idea that was, I had no idea at all. I found out so many different things. Oh, so-and-so just did this, joins the illustrious group, and there's my name. I said, oh, really? I did that? I mean, it's incredible how some people are into all of these analytics and these statistics and everything. I found out one that I'd had no idea of is that I have the record for the highest average of any player in NBA finals. I didn't know that.
Wow. Just out there playing.
Yeah, I'm playing. I mean, but that season when you talked about it, the interesting thing there is I would love to have seen what I might have been able to do in that series if I had a healthy ankle. I played on an ankle that I should never have played on. They would never let me do that in today's game because I could have ruined my entire career in my second year in the league. It was so bad. I had to get my ankle. I got it shot so I couldn't feel it before the game and at halftime. I was so lucky that I didn't ruin my career having done that. And I averaged over 40 points a game in that finals, getting shot up before the game and at halftime.
Yeah, it could have ruined your pickleball career too.
It could have ruined my and my long driving career in golf. You know, I got
exactly.
to compete it.
When you look back on your career, is there anybody that you played against that you would have loved to play with? I mean, you played in such an illustrious era in basketball, so many names, especially now with the NBA and the ABA. Is there anybody that you would have loved to have played with at any point?
Well, I probably would have loved to have played with Bill Russell because of the fact that I would have been on a lot more championship teams because that's all I really good at. You know, you're playing to win championships, not to win individual awards. I had a lot of great individual awards, you know, steals, champion, free throw stuff and all, but that's not what you play for. You play for a championship, and that's what I would have cared about, you know. And obviously, the guy who had more impact on a team winning multiple championships than any other player in the history of the game is Bill Russell. Now, I'm not saying, and I love Bill and all, and I got to work with Bill. I know him, and he invited me to his Jersey retirement, which was an honor, and proud to call him a friend. But I can't say that he's the best center to ever play the game, but he is the center who had the most impact on a team's success. He happened to be surrounded with a lot of great players. That's not taking away from what he did, but he did it not because of his offense, but because of his defense. He was such a factor defensively on that team. And, you know, and he still scored, you know, obviously double digits in points and whatever, but, you know, amazing rebounds and would have had stupid block shots numbers, but they never kept those stats back in those days. And so that would be one, mainly because of all of the players out there, he's the one that would have enabled me to be on more championship teams. So I'd have to put him at the top of my list. But I would love to play with a lot of guys, you know.
Yeah.
That's why back then when it actually was a game, I mean, please don't call it All-Star game anymore. It's bullshit. It's the All-Star exhibition. Okay. It's not a game.
Yeah, that's true.
It's not a game. It's a joke. Okay.
Yeah.
So you want to go to get entertained, watch these guys going out there screwing around, having fun and doing it. That's fine. But it's not a game, and they should put asterisks by any record that's in there. It's ridiculous. We competed. I mean, it was a serious, serious game when we played. And I got to play with some amazing players. In fact, I have one picture that I have. There's 7 players in the picture from the 67 All-Star game when I was fortunate enough to be the MVP. And every one of the players in the picture is a top 50 player.
Wow.
It's pretty cool. Yeah,
That's incredible.
I mean, great. I mean, we played against the front line of Wilt Chamberlain, Bill Russell, and Jerry Lucas.
Mm-hmm.
That was the front line of the East team when we played against them. And I was on the team with Elgin Baylor and Nate Thurman and myself. And so, and for me, it was just, it's almost like a fairy tale thing. I mean, I was out there, I was guarding and playing against my boyhood basketball idol, who was Elgin Baylor. I tried to pattern myself after Elgin Baylor and the things that he did hanging in the air and whatever. And so I had almost like pinched myself. I mean, I'm guarding my boyhood basketball hero. I mean, this is insane. You know, so it's amazing. Now, the only thing different, if I could change it, I'd like to be playing now, because I was just talking with George on the phone. I said, George, can you imagine if we were just 30 years old today, we'd have a $200 million guaranteed contract. We have 2-0 on our contracts. George said to me, he said, well, yeah, my first year I made 50,000. And I said, well, that's great. That's a lot more than they offered me as the second player picked in the draft, $12,500, and I had to make the team.
That's insane. That's
the lowest paid guy in the NBA this year, counting what they get from NBA properties money as well, will make twice as much money as I made in the best year I ever had. The guy that never plays.
That's
So
ridiculous.
crazy.
That's
That
great.
is
Yeah, that's
inflation.
insane.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Do you wish that you played in today's era, specifically such like a shooter? I mean, this really is the era of shooters. You
Well,
know,
here's the deal. I wasn't a shooter. I was a scorer. Big
Mhm.
difference. You know, when I hear these guys on TV, I go nuts when I hear a former player say, well, he's a lockdown defender. Trust me. There's no such thing as a lockdown defender if he's guarding a scorer. You can't lock down a scorer. You can lock down a shooter, but you can't lock down a scorer. Too many ways to beat you. You can't lock me down. Nobody locked me down because I was a scorer. I got to be, a good shooter. You had to be a decent enough shooter to get the guy to guard you honestly, and then you owned him. Okay, so you had to be good enough to do that. But I was never a great shooter, and then I had to learn how to had to learn another shot. I had to learn to shoot the ball from further out. I never shot from that far with the 3-point shot. I got up to shooting 33%, which is equivalent to 50 from two, so that's acceptable to me. If you can't shoot 30 or above, you have no business ever shooting 3-point shots because 30 is up in the in mid 40s and stuff, which is reasonably acceptable. Um, and if you shoot 33, you're at 50. But if I were playing today, I would not be happy with myself if I wasn't a 40% shooter from threes, and I would have worked on that. And that's just a matter of going out and practicing. That would have been the goal I set for myself. But if I were playing today, I would play point guard. I was faster than guards. They talked about me being the first point forward because I bring it up the floor and pass. I would, without question, if I was playing today, because I was quick enough to do it, I would want to be a point guard because you can control the destiny of your team.
Yeah, that'd
I
be
would
cool.
love to have that. I kind of did that as a forward. Wasn't easy to do as a forward, much easier as a guard, a point guard. And that's what, if I came back to play today, I would want to be a point guard. And I hear a lot of people come up to me and say, Rick, you guys couldn't play with these guys today. And I look at them and say, what, are you on drugs? Are you something wrong with it? I mean, seriously. I mean, you're not serious, are you? And of course they are. They say, yeah, no, you guys. I said, you're out of your mind. I said, do you understand how much better I would be today if I played? If I was
Yeah.
playing today with everything is so sophisticated from the training standpoint. I mean, everything is sports specific. We did nothing, never lifted a weight, never did anything other than one year when we won the championship. The coach brought in the track coach from Stanford University, and he had us show us some stretches that we did on our own. Nothing. We did zero. We didn't have a dietitian. We didn't have pregame stuff that you had before you worked out or after game stuff that you did. Nothing. And I would be faster, stronger, quicker, more endurance, jump higher. It's crazy how much better I would be if I
Yeah.
played today.
Yeah, I know. That's like the most ludicrous thing I think we see a lot on social media is a lot of the younger generation not understanding the kind of like how much has changed just over time and how much, NBA players nowadays have so many different resources that they're able to lean on. So very crazy. I agree. People say that. I think it's very ludicrous. One thing, obviously, you mentioned this, that very well known for the free throw. In preparation for this, and I'm sure you've told this a million times, could not really find where that story or how that originated. How did you start shooting free throws? As crazy as that sounds, I couldn't find that.
My father was a semi-pro player and coach, and my father said, "Son, I think you could shoot a higher percentage." I was maybe a mid-70 free throw shooter, which is not good. Anybody who doesn't shoot 80% from the free throw line is not a good free throw shooter. I mean, you think about it. Same size ball every time, same distance every time, same size basket every time, and you can't make 4 out of every 5. You can't make 80%, and that's embarrassing. It's truly embarrassing that you can't make 4 out of every 5 shots that you take with all of the factors that are involved in it always the same. The only difference being is that there might be a different background, right? That's it. There might be through a glass backboard. There might be a different background. So yeah, I mean, I can make 80% with my eyes closed.
No problem.
No problem. No, I do it. I demonstrate all the time with people doing it. I shoot stuff I can still do that today at my age. I can shoot better free throws than a whole bunch of guys that are in the NBA right now at my age. And that's pathetic. It really is. I mean, come on. Learn how to shoot. I don't care what you do. And then they don't want to try underhanded because it doesn't look cool. Who cares what it looks like?
Yeah.
The object is to try to put the ball in the basket with the highest proficiency possible. So no matter however the hell you want to do it, if you can do it, if you do whatever way you want to do it, but don't be happy unless you're making 80% or more.
Yeah. And I know in the past you said that like ego is a big reason that guys didn't do that. We talked about like, ego or arrogance before, but that was a few years back.
There's a big difference between the two. The ego gets involved with this, and not arrogance. It's the ego.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So we talked, I know that you had mentioned in the past that ego was one of the reasons guys don't shoot like that. And then we saw a player from the Rockets who actually tried that method for the short span he was playing. But are you surprised now that people still are reluctant, especially bad free throw shooters, are still reluctant to try that method?
I can't figure out why you wouldn't. Why won't you try anything? Try
Right.
anything. If you're shooting, I mean, Andres Biedrins 1 year for the Warriors, I think shot 18 or 19% from the free throw line. Are you kidding me? DeAndre Jordan, 3 seasons or so ago, he missed 23 free throws in one game. 23 misses in one game. I missed 19 in my last 2 seasons in total. 20, it's like it's beyond my comprehension how guys can live with themselves. I mean, I can't figure it out. I mean, you should be willing to try anything to get to be better.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree with you because especially when you said we live in an era of such like statistics. I mean, we saw that what was a team that was guarding Harden behind his back because some statistical thing said that might be a better way to defend him if you stand behind him. But why wouldn't you just change your free throw shooting form? I don't know. That doesn't make any sense to me.
No, it really truly doesn't. So guys should be willing to try anything. You would think, but obviously that's not the case.
No.
It's just not the case. I mean, I tried to get Shaq to do it, and he said, "Rick, I'm a hip hop kind of guy. It'd be bad for my image." And and he's so big and strong and everything. I didn't want to get him mad at me, and I didn't want to say, "What do you think your image is now?" I mean, but yeah. And if Shaq had done that, you know how many more championships Shaq could have won? If Shaq became an 80% free throw shooter going underhand, I had a teammate, George Johnson, was like 50. He wound up shooting 80% 1 year when he went off and played with the Nets and all. Shaquille O'Neal, as an 80% free throw shooter at the end of games, changes the dynamic of the game. If the game's over, you throw it into him in the post, and he's going to probably score a bunch of them. And even if you foul him and he's making 80% of them, that's not going to work for you. I mean, he would have been the go-to guy in the game as opposed to the go-to the bench guy, which they had to do because he became a liability.
Not to mention it probably opened the doors for the younger generation to kind of follow that trend.
Yeah, exactly. If somebody else current had enough guts to go ahead and do it. So, I mean, there really isn't anybody doing it. And I was really surprised that Rick Pitino knows me. When that kid in college decided, he said he wanted to try it, why in the world would Rick Pitino not call me up and say, "Rick, can you come and work with this kid?" And just let him do it the way he wanted to do it. His form was atrocious. He had no chance the way he was shooting. But I give him credit for willingness to try it. But why in the world would Rick not have called me and say, "Could you come in and work with him a little bit?" And I could have helped him a great deal because his technique was abominable.
Yeah. It's a good question.
Yeah, that's a good question. So we talk about, you've mentioned it a couple of times, Steph, talk about Draymond. We see with a lot of franchises, especially with the Lakers and the Celtics and even like the Knicks to a certain extent, how the current players are always paying homage and paying respect and being comparison to the stewards of the franchise in the past. How it has Steph and Draymond and Clay been? Because this really has been a golden era in Warriors basketball. How are they with
the last few years? Yeah.
right, exactly. Last few years, definitely coming out of it, I should say.
That was a hell of a 5-year run they went on. It really was. It was really fun to watch them play. I mean, they really conceivably, I think, could have won 5 years in a row if it weren't for the fact that the official swallowed his whistle when LeBron threw Draymond to the court and should have been called for a flagrant foul. Had he done that, LeBron, and then now Draymond doesn't respond the way he did. He doesn't get suspended for that game, and there's no way they're going to beat them. And even as it was, the Warriors killed themselves with doing nothing but shooting 3-point shots in the last 4 minutes and 40 seconds. They never took a shot other than a 3-pointer, other than the breakaway layup that LeBron saved the game by blocking that shot at Iguodala, because then they would have been ahead. And I don't think that Cleveland would have been able to come from behind. And I always tell people, I said, look at the shot that Kyrie, in the last 4 minutes and 20 seconds of that game 7 at home, one shot was made. One 3-point shot by Kyrie Irving. Now, I told people, I said, it's easy when you're tied to take a 3-point shot. If you're down and you're taking a 3-point shot, that's a little more difficult. Because if you miss and they get the ball back, now you could be in big trouble. So it's easy. So what happened? You miss it. Bam, we're still tied. You know, I mean, that hasn't changed anything. The game is still exactly the way it was. And the only other point made was LeBron made one of 2 free throws. And then the Warriors just missed a bunch of shots, kept taking 3-point shots. Why? With 5 minutes to go, I don't know why they didn't just say, hey, Steph, Clay, attack the basket. This is obviously, folks, before Kevin Durant joined them. Attack the basket. You're at home. Get to the free throw line. Let's put some points on the board and make these guys have to play from behind. I don't know why they didn't go with that philosophy. It was just all 3-pointers. It was kind of sad and difficult for me to watch that, because I see the game, I think, differently than a lot of people see it. I mean, I watch the games. It's hard for me to listen to the announcers, most of them, because they're watching a game that is a different game that I'm watching, because they don't talk about the things that I see. And it's hard. It's hard for me to watch a lot of times the way the teams play, because they just don't play the game the way it was designed to be played. And that's why the Warriors were able to do what they did in that 5-year stretch. And then, of course, without KD and Clay getting hurt, there's no way Toronto's going to win that series.
Yeah.
So that would have been 5 in a row.
Yeah.
As it was,
wild.
the best 5-year run that any team's ever had.
Yeah.
Even the great Celtics and Lakers teams.
Not
Great
for sure.
team.
I mean, that team was almost like, it's almost like an all-star team out there. I mean, really, you look at the 5, especially when you have Draymond at the 5 and then Iguodala out there. It was unfair in a lot of ways.
Well,
And I know
really unfair is when they had Kevin Durant.
right.
I mean, seriously. I mean, they have 3 players that you can't guard. They have 3 players who are great 3-point shooters, great mid-range shooters, great free throw shooters who can get to the basket. So, I mean, how do you defend that? I mean, it's bad enough trying to defend a team that has 1 guy that can do that, or 2. They had 3. So the bottom line is that to beat the Warriors, you had to hope, when KD was there, you had to hope that 2 of those 3 guys were having bad games to have any chance at all. And the perfect example of that is that one of the series, I think it was the second year KD was there. If you look back and look at the stats, Clay struggled mightily in the first 2 series. I mean, he was nowhere near the player he was, didn't shoot the ball well, whatever. They swept both series because KD and Steph were on their game. And they swept the series without Klay Thompson. So what chance would a team have if Klay was on? So I said the Warriors changed the whole dynamic of the game of basketball. For decades and decades and decades, it was always tough defense, right? Minimize the number of fast break opportunities, minimize the number of second chance opportunities, and force the team to beat you from the perimeter. That was the entire philosophy of defense for basketball in the NBA especially. Well, folks, not only could the Warriors beat you from the perimeter, they could embarrass you from the perimeter. It changed everything in the game of basketball. And now I mean, come on, teams are shooting 70 3-point shots in a game. It's like, my God, it's like the mid-range game is, disappearing. I mean, it's either, get a dunk or go to the basket and get a dunk or shoot a 3-point shot. So sometimes it's not a lot of fun to watch, but the only thing about it that's better since the Warriors showed that they could do it is most teams now are not doing as much one-on-one as they had done in the past, which I hate watching. And I'm going to give a lot of credit to James Harden for changing his game now that he's with Brooklyn, because watching the way he played with the Rockets was hard. That was very difficult for me to even watch that. I mean, one man with the ball in his hands for 22 seconds. And then if he couldn't get a shot, he'd throw it to somebody who'd have to throw up a prayer with 2 seconds on the shot clock. And that happened a lot. And it also happened with the Cleveland Cavaliers in the first series when they played the Warriors. I was writing for the Examiner. And I wrote in the column, I said, there is no way the Cleveland Cavaliers can beat the Golden State Warriors in this series playing the way they played game number 1. You know how many times? In 59. I charted this stuff when I do these things. It was a 59 or 69. It might have been 69 because it was 59. Yeah, that's another one. 69 times the Cleveland Cavaliers on offense had 0 or 1 pass.
Oh my gosh, that is wild.
No, it was insane. And the same thing with violating the rules and stuff. I charted it was 59 times that I watched Atlanta play Chicago years ago when they both were in the playoffs. And there were 59 moving screens that weren't called. The officials, I blame the officials. The officials don't officiate the game the way the rule book says it should be officiated. That, traveling and carrying the basketball are 3 grossly abused parts of the game of basketball that players get away with. It's just pathetic that they allow them to do the things that they do. I mean, carrying the ball sometimes is so egregious. It's just beyond my comprehension how much they carry the basketball. I mean, hell, I could get by my guy without doing that. I can't even imagine what I've been able to do if I would have carried the ball.
And then they send you to the free throw line. Oh, it's a wrap.
Shit,
It's a wrap.
crazy.
Yeah, the NBA is definitely a beast of its own. But then the Big Three emerged in 2017, and you've been a part of it since that inaugurating season. First off, how did you get involved with the league? You obviously have some friends and some ties to the league. But
No, I mean, I just got a call from somebody said, "Hey, they're starting this thing up there. Would you be interested in being one of the coaches?" And I said, "Well, what is it?" And then they told me what it was and everything. I said, "Yeah, sure, that'd be great. I mean, do it. I need to do something. I didn't make multi-millions of dollars doing it. I need to subsidize my fishing habit. I'm a big time fly fisherman, and it's expensive when I go on these trips to Alaska and stay at these remote lodges. It's not inexpensive to go to Alaska and do that." And so I said, "Yeah, this would be great. I can be around the game, get to see a lot of contemporaries and be a part of the game again, and subsidize my fishing habit, which makes my wife happy."
what do you think you've enjoyed the most since the inception about the league?
Well, just getting around and being around the guys, getting to hang and see Dr. J, who I know really well, and see Gary Payton and George Gervin and a lot of the guys that were from my time, Clyde Drexler, who of course is younger than I am, most of them are younger than I am, but still to see these guys and just to be around the game. Getting to meet Cube, who's such an icon and so great in all the different things he does and loves the game so much that he was willing to do this with Jeff. He's really a great guy, by the way. And to be a part of that and just be around the game again and get to see the fans and do a little bit of coaching. I mean, I did do some coaching in the minor leagues. I actually really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the teaching part of it more so than the coaching in the games themselves. When I got young players and I was able to show them some things and their eyes would get really big, and it was pretty amazing to me. And I'm not going to mention any names because I don't want to get people all upset about it, but they came from some very reputedly great programs. And I was shocked at how poor fundamentally they were and some of the things that they were doing. It was almost mind numbing to me. I mean, seriously, you were told to do this? Really? And so anyway, so it was fun to do that and see a guy get excited and be able to show him something to take his game to a whole nother level. And I was fortunate enough, I say, to learn the game, the way the game should be played. It was, you can call it old school, whatever you want, but I call it the reality. That's the way the game should be played. It's not like it's old school. It's the way it should be played. You can still do the things that they're doing, but you don't want to overdo things. And in the 3-point shooting, hey, a lot of times you live and die with it. The Warriors died in Game 7 with the 3-point shot. They died with that shot. It killed them. I mean, they had a lot of great victories, but if it's not going in, there's other ways. I'm still a believer that I would want to have, and it doesn't have to be a center, because I used to post up small guys when I coached. I had some guys that were beasts in the post. So what you do is you bring your big man out high and you post up a small guy. Like if I were coaching the Warriors when Baron Davis was playing, I would have posted Baron Davis up. He was tough in the post, and plus, if they double, you got your best passer passing the ball out.
Yeah.
I mean,
Very
it's
true.
Inside out. I do believe inside out is an easier way to do it than just coming down and dribble, boom, step back, 3-point shot, dribble, everybody else standing around doing nothing. I was taught by my dad, and I always remember it. He said, "Son, the more decisions you force the defense to make, the more the likelihood they'll make a mistake. And if you have intelligent players who were taught to play the game the right way and see the floor and understand it, you are going to get more easy baskets." And I always give this example of why the Warriors won and why they beat Cleveland so often, other than that fluke thing when Draymond got thrown out, is because of the fact that they didn't run an offense like the Warriors did. The Warriors pass, move, cut 4, 5, 6, 7 passes. And I remember in the series when it looked like Cleveland was going to get swept, and they came back and made a great valiant effort at home to win the game, to make it 3-1, going back to play the Warriors in San Francisco. They were in Oakland at the time. They weren't in San Francisco in the new building yet. And they were ahead. They had a nice lead to start the game doing it. The Warriors came back on them in the second quarter and do it. It would have been easy for Cleveland to say it's over because nobody's ever come back from a 3-1 deficit in the finals. But to their credit, they didn't. And they fought. And it was still a really close game in the third quarter. And 2 plays changed the whole game. And I don't remember if it was Steph or Clay who was coming from the left side and running off of it, their teammates with 3 guys, forcing the defense to have to make some decisions. And on the far right side, I remember on one of the plays for sure, it was LeBron James and J.R. Smith, and they didn't communicate well, and they both went out on the shooter, and the inside guy stepped in and got a dunk. And that happened twice in a critical part. Warriors got those baskets, and the game was over. They blew it open from that point forward. And that happened because they were playing the game the way it should be played. They were forcing Cleveland to make defensive decisions, and they screwed up, and the Warriors capitalized on it. Plays in basketball are designed under an ideal situation. It's rare that plays actually run through exactly the way you draw them up. This is the ideal thing. You do this, this will happen, this will happen. Well, you don't know what's going to really happen. And that's why smart players will always innovate. And you're smart. And so if your guy turns his head up, go to the basket, screw the play. And if you have a good teammate who's not dribbling the ball around all the time, everything, he'd throw the ball to you and you get a wide open basket. And so you have to be able to innovate. You have to be able to recognize situations and take advantage of what the defense gives you. You try not to force things, but the more decisions you make them, force them to make, the more the likelihood that they're going to make a mistake. And that's what it's all about in basketball. And people don't explain that real well. Just like the terminology has to change. And I'm going to keep saying this until the day I die. There's no such thing as setting a screen. And when I hear Jeff Van Gundy and some of these guys on TV, he didn't set a very good screen. You don't set anything. When you hear the words, he didn't set a good screen. If I'm a player, I'm saying, okay, I didn't do something I was supposed to do because I didn't set a screen. Having to set something means I have something I have to do. No, you do nothing. Your responsibility as a teammate is to put yourself in a position to allow your teammate to turn you into a screener by setting his man up and running his man into you. You therefore now become a screener, but you didn't set anything. You are a stationary object that you wind up being a screener, but only if your teammate's smart enough to set his man up and run him into you. And what happens is that because the teammate doesn't do the right thing, the guy's coming over the top. The guy, well, I got to set a screen. So he moves a little bit. And if you watch that, I told you 59 times in one game that happened and no whistle blew. The officials let guys get away with murder. Kevin Garnett would have fouled out of every game he played in if they ever called it. I mean, and that's because they don't talk about the fact that his teammate didn't do the right thing to set his man up properly. And then they send guys to come to go ahead and supposedly be screeners or become a screener from the worst angles possible. If I'm playing on the right wing, free throw extended, why do I want a screen coming from the top of the key? What the hell do I want to go to half court for? That's worthless. The guy who's supposed to be the screener, he's going to come and make himself available. I'm not going to use him. I don't want to go there. I want to go to the basket. Get down to the damn low block and come from the low block and put yourself in a position. I'll make you a screener. And it's not, and then the players themselves have to learn that as the guy's coming out to do it, you attack your guy. You get your man to move. And if he doesn't react, you're going by him baseline. If the guy's coming out towards the middle of the court, I'm going to beat him going to the basket. And if he moves, now I got him perfectly. He's moved. My guy puts himself in the right position. I come right off of my teammate. There's no room for him to get off. Now they got to make a big decision. Because if he chases me, boom, he gets screened. Big man rolls. He's got that guy in his back. If the big guy doesn't come out, I've got a jump shot wide open. If he comes out to get me, my guys roll. I got him, and he's probably going in for a dunk. That's the ideal way to do it. And I wish they would explain that on television, but nobody does.
Do you have to tweak any of these fundamentals, the passing, the screens? Is this something that translates, perfectly from 5v5 to 3v3? Or is there a little bit of tweaking, in your opinion, that needs to be done?
From playing 3-on-3, basketball is a game of 1-on-1, 2-on-2, and 3-on-3. It's rarely that the other guys are involved. All you want to do over there is keep the guys busy so that they don't slough off and do it. And if they do, you move and you get yourself open. But it's really, guy goes 1-on-1, you clear the floor for him, or you got a 2-man game with the screen and roll. And then a lot of times you do it, the old school, the old triangle offense, which basically is basketball 1-on-1 that Chicago did all the time. And Phil Jackson used a lot, and that was, just hit the center, guys cut off one another, try to run their man into it, again, forcing it. That's basketball 1-on-1, 101. And it's a simple game. We tend to make it a little bit too complicated, and then we tend to screw it up by too much of the one-on-one stuff, particularly, and too much dribbling. Here's the thing. When I got the ball in the wing, you rarely saw me get the ball and start dribbling. I got the ball and I wanted to see how my guy was guarding me. And I tried to get the ball so I have no pivot foot, so that I have my entire offense given away. You watch guys playing all the time and they'll come catch the ball, they'll establish a pivot foot. You're just giving away 50% of your offense. Because if I have a pivot foot and you're guarding me, I can only go to if I have a right foot pivot foot, I can only go with my left leg and one way or the other. That's it. I can't use my right because that's my pivot foot. I can't use that.
Yeah.
So I just gave away half my offense. Why do I want to do that? And then I look and I see how you're guarding me. And depending on how you're guarding me, I'm going to attack you based upon the way that you guard me. And then all I need to do, I'm going to get you to move. So I'm going to do something. And if I start to make a move or an attack you, and you don't react instantaneously, I own you. And here's the reason why. I don't have to get by you. All I have to do is get you even with my shoulder, a half a step. If I get a half a step on you, I own you. You can't stop me from doing what I want to do. So it's not having to beat the guy and get right by him. No, I only got to even with you. That's all. And so the slightest little movement, if I get you moving backwards and then I do some stuff to suck you in, it's like a magician. I'm trying to get you to think I'm coming back. But even though it looks like I'm coming backwards, the moment I start to do that, if you react and you give the slightest little motion towards me, I'm in a position where I'm going to push off with my back foot and I'm going to get that half a step on you. You're done. Absolutely done. And if I start to come back and you don't come back, I come right back and go up and shoot. You'll never get to me to block that shot. It's so simple, but it's not being taught.
They say if you're even, you're leaving, at least from a football term, but it
there you
works
go.
in basketball as well.
All I need to do is get you on my shoulder.
Yep.
What I've learned from that answer is I wouldn't have a chance. That's basically what that answer just told me.
And here's the thing is that when you had a guy who supposedly these great defenders, the great defenders sometimes were more difficult, were easier to beat than the guy who wasn't, because the great defenders would react to everything. And because they really want to get you and they're there and they're so anxious. And that's what I want. I just want you to be moving. I just got to get you to move. And if I get you to move the wrong way at the wrong time, you're toast.
Yeah. I feel like we're getting more of a basketball lesson than anything, but this is great. This is great stuff.
I'm taking notes.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm gonna be ready for my pickup league next year. Want to talk a little bit about Ball Hogs. Obviously, hasn't panned out through the first 3 years, probably as you hope for. But I feel like despite the record this year, there was a lot of promise that was showed. I think maybe I'm just speaking personally, but big fan of Will McDonald and what he was able to bring to the league, and feel like he was one of the more underrated guys.
I'm here in Florida. I had lunch with Will a month or so ago, whatever it was. And yeah, he did a really nice job. He's a lot older, but he played a lot of years. He was a good player. I think he got absolutely no respect from the officials. I think they beat the hell out of him, and he just didn't get a lot of calls. I was livid at times, but a really good guy, and did a nice job for us. He was a nice player.
What do you feel like was, I guess, like was there like a point in the year or anything throughout the year that was very encouraging to you, like going into this next season, that you're like, oh, wow, we can really build off of that? Because I know it's been a little bit of a tough run the first year.
No, because you don't know who's going to be at the combine. You don't know who's available for the draft. You just don't know. You don't know what kind of shape the guys are going to be in who are coming back. We got a lot of guys that are older. They're trying to get some stuff where they got younger people. So it should be interesting to see what happens this year. Probably the only redeeming thing about it is the last 2 years, the last game of the season, we won the games and knocked that team out of the play. So that was kind of that. I enjoyed that a little bit, that our guys came through. And the one thing about my guys, we never quit. They played hard. We were in every game and at halftime, and we just couldn't get it done most of the time in the half. And then we got really hot, and Xavier Silas and who else? I'm saying who else played? Well, Will played really well, but also
Deshaun
came through with a big shot at the end for us too. But so did Xavier Silas. I mean, he made a 4-point shot, and we just pulled off a big upset. So that was kind of cool. And we need a little bit more of that. We just need to find out how to play a little better in the second half. But I don't know who the players are going to be. I mean, I don't know if Josh is going to be back. I don't know if Deshaun's going to be back. I would assume he is. I saw some stuff of Scal working out, so I guess Scal's planning to come back. And then you have some other guys you got to pick up in the draft. I'd love to get Jermaine Taylor back again because he was just athletic and young guy who had played well, and he blew out his knee early, and he's worked really hard. And Will said actually that he had played in some game or something with Jermaine this year, and I've kept in touch with him in the off season, and he said he's feeling great and just a terrific young man, and I'd love to have him, but who knows? I mean, I don't know. I don't make the final decisions on players.
Sure.
It's the captains that have that authority to do that, which is kind of an unusual trait.
They're like, hey, you're coaching, but you don't get to make any decisions. You get to coach, but no decisions.
Well, yeah, even some, yeah, okay. Well, that's even sometimes if I get to do that. So anyway.
Well, I feel like the team is really interesting in the sense of like Scal and Josh, I feel like maybe are most well known for just having like other benchers outside of basketball. I know like a lot of guys do, but I feel like Josh is like creating this whole company, and then like Scal's doing a lot of things with them broadcasting. And then it's a little bit of unluckiness. We saw Jermaine obviously go out with the Achilles. You drafted Dusan Ballou, or your team did, and then FIBA takes him away and is basically like, hey, you're not going to be able to play in the Olympics if you play
I was
in that league.
disappointed that you brought that up, because my son Canyon is, what was the only USA gold medal in basketball that was never won by the USA until summer before last was 3x3. They had never won the gold medal.
Yeah.
3x3. My son Canyon made that team. They went over and they went undefeated and they won the gold medal in the World Cup. And they didn't get to qualify for the Olympics, which is pretty amazing. How do you win the world championship and you don't get to qualify for the Olympics? I mean,
that's a little silly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they got to qualify for the qualifying tournament. And so he's trying to get himself ready for that. That's coming up at the end of May and everything. But and so he played against Dusan Bullet and upset them in that world championship tournament. And Dusan is really nice. And I don't know if anybody's ever seen, go look him up and see some of the highlights of Dusan. He's he's
crazy.
Pretty amazing player. Can pass it, do some and shoot the ball. And I drafted him, but then it didn't get to work out. And it's too bad, because I would have loved to have had him. I think he would have made us a better basketball team without question, because of his ability to create and shoot. You're not going to win in 3x3 if you can't shoot the 3 points. And in the competition for 3x3 internationally, it's only a 2-point shot.
Yeah.
You don't get 2 points, not 3 points.
And they're constantly running. There is no stoppage.
And it's moving. There's no stopping. It's going clear fast. I mean, it's really, it's not like you make a basket, take it out. No, you get it and boom, they're throwing it out.
Yeah. They're like running to the perimeter. They're sprinting to the perimeter.
It's 10 minutes and it's it only played at 21 points. I mean, it's really a fast-paced game, and it's interesting. But I would have loved to have had Dusan. I mean, if it would be great if I had a chance and they just for one time maybe do something and say, let the coaches pick his team and stuff. And I would put together a really interesting team. I always like to do things and think outside the box. So I would bring in a really interesting team. I mean, because you really need to know how to play the game the right way to be a really good 3-on-3 player, a 3x3 team. I mean, guys can do their own stuff one-on-one, which is a lot of that is what it is. But if you really know how to play, move, and cut and do something, it's really fun to watch, and you can get some really cool stuff happening on the court. And that's what I like about it. It's the way everybody grew up playing basketball. Basically, most everybody played 3-on-3 in the playgrounds.
Yeah.
You say you'd bring in a really interesting team. Can you give us a little bit of a preview of what that would look like?
I would have somebody like Dusan Bullet and some other guys that were 3-on-3 players.
Yeah.
Not necessarily great NBA players, because 3-on-3 is totally different than playing NBA basketball, other than the one-on-one part of it. If you wanted to just let a guy go one-on-one and kill you, I mean, Joe Johnson was able to do that last year and was the MVP, played exceptionally well. And, hey, if you have a player like that, that'd be great. But if you have a player like that and you have a couple of guys that can do one-on-one, but they also know how to play, move, cut, understand back cutting and things of that nature, you can have some real fun playing the game. I mean, the fun for me was just being able, and that's why Bill Russell was great too, because try to outthink the other guy, not outplay him necessarily, outthink him.
What about Canyon? Does Canyon make your squad?
I would have Canyon on my team in a heartbeat. My son, he's really a good 3x3 player. I mean, he did a really nice job. He hadn't done a lot of it and all. And I mean, I think he was the 4th or 5th leading scorer in the world championships and played exceptionally well. And And he really knows the game. I mean, he knows the game. He's so smart. I mean, he's got his degree in physics, but also his master's in nuclear engineering. I mean, he's really smart and knows the game really well. I don't know why he hasn't gotten a chance. I'm befuddled by that, to be honest with you. I mean, he just played in the G League thing again. He was 50, 40, 100.
He played exceptional in the bubble.
50, 40, 100.
That's
I mean,
never heard of.
and there's guys that are playing on their parent team that are shooting in the 20s and threes, the low 40s or 30s and twos, and maybe 60 or 70 from the free throw line. And you got a guy that's 50, 40, 900. He didn't miss a free throw during the course of the season, the shortened season, and he knows the game. That's the thing. He knows the game. He knows how to play. He understands weak side help. He understands passing the ball. He understands pushing it. He understands creating. Anyway, God has a master plan. And like they say, the old cliche, in life, you have to play the cards you're dealt.
Sure.
And that's why I tell people, learn to be a bridge player as opposed to being a poker player. Because in bridge, it's a skill and critical to be able to play bad hands, to be able to be a champion in bridge. In poker, you fold. You can't fold, necessarily. You got to still play your hand, even if you don't get the bid, you still got to play your hand. You can't say fold, I'm out. And so that's why I like to make that analogy, that you're better to be someone who would be a great bridge player because you're thinking the game.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm actually glad that you brought up Canyon and why he hasn't gotten a chance, because I feel like now that the Big Three has gone to the 22, like the age limit's now 22, and I feel like they're trying to legitimize themselves a little bit more about being an avenue to the NBA. Would you ever, I wouldn't say push, but would you ever advise like Canyon, like, hey, maybe you try this route, since necessarily like people didn't clearly see what he did in the G League?
It wasn't for this Olympic thing here, which I don't know what's going to happen with him. That if there was a chance for him to come and play there, I would love to have him on my team. And I think some of the other coaches would love to have him because he knows how to play. I mean, it's a great opportunity. 22, I don't know if I'd like guys who have experience. His age is a great age, 26, 27 years old. You've got a little experience. You've played some international ball. Those are the kind of guys that I think that I'd want to have. Some of the younger players, because as I told you before, when I coached a lot of these young guys coming out of college and stuff, they really didn't know how to play the right way. They just didn't get taught how to play the game. They were able to use their athleticism. That's why I'm not a big fan of all AAU stuff. There's some great coaches out there, I'm sure, but there are also a lot of coaches out there who just say, hey, go out there, run faster, jump higher, use your athleticism and go beat somebody. I just saw a thing the other day that was pretty remarkable. Trae Young's AAU team. There's a picture of them all together. Every one of the guys on Trae Young's AAU team has made it to the NBA.
Wow.
I'm serious. Look that up.
That's crazy.
That's so crazy.
That's unbelievable.
Wow. That's like a 1 in a million
odds?
chance.
What are the odds on that?
Yeah. Maybe 1 in a billion.
Unbelievable.
Imagine how the kids feel who had to play him.
I can't imagine what they must have done to the teams they played against. I mean, my God, every player, they had them with their AAU uniforms. Then they were all over there, each one of them with their NBA uniform top on. It was amazing to me.
Full-blown slaughter.
Cool. So anyway, guys, I wish you guys all the best in your career. If you're going to get in broadcasting, I mean, you're doing the right thing to get started off, and you did a very nice job. I will tell you that. You had some good questions. You actually listened to me, which is good, and so I hope that things work out for you. You'll hang in there, get as much experience as you can. So are you guys out of college now?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
They were both out.
Right. Yeah. So go and apply, and apply for different jobs. Try to see if you get a chance. Did you get to do anything when you were in college at your university? Did you do some stuff while you were there?
I went into school thinking I wanted to be a journalism major and left realizing I did not want to be what I thought I wanted to be. Just with the different way the media perceives their news, or I guess showcases their news. I didn't always feel like that's the way I wanted to showcase the stories I wanted to tell. So I'm actually in sales right now. I'm in tech sales. So a little bit different career path, but this is really where I take into that journalism experience and utilize it. I did a couple things.
You're a journalist with your mouth.
Sure. Yeah.
It's the difference. You're just not typing it or
Yeah.
whatever you need to do for it, putting it on using your laptop or whatever, you're talking. I mean, that's what it is. It really is. It's more difficult, actually. Way more difficult than being a journalist.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Definitely.
because you don't have a chance to go when you're doing this, you have to do it. It's especially when you're doing live.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have a chance to go back and read it over 4 times and say, oh no, I think I'll change that, put this word in, and maybe I'll move this and stuff.
True.
So the only time it's tough when having talked to those guys and been around them a lot is when you have to go ahead and you have a deadline and you're watching a game and the game ran over and stuff, and you got to get a story in there and you don't have a lot of time to do it. Then that's putting a little bit of heat on you right there. And you better have confidence in yourself when you have to do that.
Oh yeah, you get used to it, definitely. But yeah, I remember the deadlines, going to McDonald's or Starbucks, the parking lot, free Wi-Fi anywhere I could get, typing one out in 30 minutes. It's definitely a grind, but I enjoy this much more, and I feel like the sport, covering the big three is a lot more enjoyable. I don't know about Will, but speaking for myself, I feel like it's a lot more enjoyable than like everybody who's covering the same thing, whether it's the NBA, the NFL. I enjoy all those things, don't get me wrong, but I feel like the same
striving for
same
you got
output.
goals. You have to have goals in life, and you want to try to find a chance to do something. That's what I tell these kids. I said, if you learn and find something you have a love and a passion for, learn as much about it as you can. That fundamentals, like I talked about, the foundation, all that good stuff. I said, because then you'll be like I was. I said, I love basketball. I learned all those things. And just think about this. I got paid to do what I love. That's not a job.
Yeah.
You don't want to be somebody who gets up in the morning, I got to go to work today. Find something at least that you love, whether it is, even if it's in self, find something you love, because then you're doing something that you love, that you really enjoy. And you're not going to be a person that gets up in the morning and says, I got to go to work today. No, I got to go play basketball today, or I got to go broadcast today, and somebody's paying me. This is a great life.
Yeah.
That's absolutely the goal,
that's what I'm shooting for. Yeah, that's what I'm shooting for. Yeah. Just want to say, Coach, we appreciate the time. Best of luck this summer. It's still trying to figure everything out, but it looks like it's going to be a pretty great season coming back from the hiatus. So best of luck this summer, and appreciate it again.
Take care, guys. See you.
Absolutely. Take care.